Conditional sentences. Conditionals consist of the if clause condition, which begins with the word if, and the main clause, which shows the result of the condition. Conditional tenses are used to speculate about what could happen, what might have happened, and what we wish would happen. Let us analyze the sentence. This sentence is a conditional because it starts with the word if, okay? And then the subject. The if clause is a statement or a sentence that is used to describe the situation. It sets the condition in the sentence, okay? That is the if clause. And then an if clause has different parts. We have, of course, the if, the subject, and then the predicate. Okay? So, you is a singular subject, however, it takes a plural verb. So, kapag may nakita kayong you sa sentence, automatic, kailangan niya ng plural verb. Etong si hit, this is a verb, and then it is a plural verb. Bakit plural verb? Kasi, wala siyang S. Kapag ang verb ay may S, singular. Pero kapag ang verb walang S, it is plural. So again, you is a singular subject. However, it takes a plural verb. Okay? So if you heat water, what would happen? It boils. It boils is the main clause in the sentence. The main clause in the sentence shows the result of the situation or the condition in the if clause. Next, if you throw the ball up, it falls on the ground. This is another conditional or conditional sentence because it starts with the word if. And then the subject you, again, you is a singular subject, however, it takes a plural verb. Singular, throw is the verb in the sentence, plural because there is no S in the sentence. So, if you throw the ball up is the if clause in the sentence. It describes the situation, sets the condition, and then, followed by a comma, it falls on the ground is our main clause. It falls on the ground, describe the consequence or the result of the situation. Okay? It pertains to the subject ball. So, it is singular. Since it is singular, it needs a singular verb. So, falls is our verb. And then, it is also a singular verb because it ends with S. Another. So, this is our if clause, if you heat water. And then, main clause, the result, it boils. If you throw the ball up, condition. And then the result is it falls on the ground. Another, if she heats water, it boils. If, it is actually our if clause, if she heats water, because it describes the situation. It starts with the word if, and then our subject she. She is singular, meaning to say it needs, our verb needs a singular verb. So, the singular verb of heat is hits. It ends with S. Every singular verb should end with S. Okay? So, it boils is our main clause. It describes the situation or it describes the result of the situation. And then, subject it pertains to water. Singular, meaning to say it requires a singular verb so that it ends with S. Another, if he throws the stones up, it will fall on the ground. He, subject, singular, needs a singular verb, ends with S. So, the conditional sentence is if he throws the stone up, which is our if clause that describe the situation or set the condition in the sentence, and then the result of that condition is what would happen if he throws the stone up? It will fall on the ground. Let us analyze the following sentences. Water turns into ice if its temperature falls to 0 degrees Celsius. So, let us analyze. As you can see in the previous example, sa sentence natin, nauuna yung if kesa dun sa main clause. Pero, pwede naman natin siyang i-invert. Mauuna yung main clause followed by if. Mapapansin ninyo, wala yung comma. Kapag ini-invert ninyo yung if clause statements or if conditional statement, kailangan wala ng comma. Okay? So, kapag i-invert natin, mauna ang main clause and then disregard na ang comma followed by the if clause. So, let us analyze the sentence. Water turns into ice if its temperature falls to 0 degree. The main clause in the sentence is water turns into ice, which describe the result of our if clause. What will happen if the temperature of the water falls to 0 degrees Celsius? So, what would happen? It will turn into ice. Okay? So, water, singular. If the subject is singular, it requires a singular verb. So, it ends with S. So, this is what we call a general truth that everything, if the temperature of the water falls to 0 degrees Celsius, it will turn into ice. Another, if you don't understand, ask the teacher. In this sentence, we start with a if followed by the subject you. Again, it is a singular subject. However, it takes a plural verb. So, lahat ng you ganon. Singular siya, pero kailangan niya ng plural verb. So, if you don't understand is our if clause. Anong gagawin mo if you don't understand the lesson? What will you do? The main clause or the result will be, you will be asking the teacher. Another, if you go to New York, you will see the Statue of Liberty. Again, we start again with the if. So, this is our if clause because we start with if, followed by the subject. You, singular, but takes the plural verb which is go. Ang plural ng goes ay go. Ang singular ng go ay goes. Okay, singular yan ng go. If you go to New York, followed by a comma, kapag nauuna ang if clause natin, kailangan ang kasunod ng if clause ay comma, followed by main clause. What will happen if you go to New York? So, makikita mo, you will see the Statue of Liberty. Next. If Rina studies hard, she will pass the exam. In this sentence, we start again with the if clause or with the if word, meaning to say, ito yung if clause natin. And then, our subject is Rina, which is singular. Since singular si Rina, kailangan ng singular verb. Okay. So, ang singular verb ng study ay studies. May S. Okay. If Rina studies hard, which sets the condition, kapag mag-aaral si Rina, what will happen or what will be the result of her studying hard? Of course, the result or the consequence of her action will be she will pass the exam. Factual or real conditional sentence, used to make statements about the real world and often refers to general truths. Zero conditionals are used for facts that are generally true and do not change. It refers to a general situation that always happens where the condition always has the same result. So, under conditional or zero conditional, dito papasok yung habits natin. Dito papasok yung scientific facts or general truth. Pwede rin dito yung under law and regulation, rules and regulation, na kunwari hindi ka, if you don't wear your school uniform under normal circumstances, you will not be allowed, or you are not allowed to go to school. So that falls under zero conditional. Yung scientific fact, habit, and then the result of rules and regulations. So, dito sa sentence na, if you heat water, it boils, it is a universal situation and a universal result na kapag mag-iinit ka ng tubig, kahit naman sino, okay, is kukulo ang tubig. Okay? Kapag mag-iinit ka ng tubig, that is a general situation na kahit sino kapag nag-init ng tubig, ang general or universal result ng pag-iinit mo ng tubig ay kukulo ang tubig. That falls under zero conditional. Universal situation where there is a universal result. So, another example, if you put the butter away from the refrigerator or sa labas ng sa may kusina, if you leave the butter under room temperature, the butter melts. So, kahit naman sino kapag iniwan yung butter sa room temperature o sa kusina, talagang malulusaw yung butter. So, that falls under zero conditional. So, under zero conditional, pwede mong gamitin yung word na if as well as when, because if you use interchangeably the word if and when, they share the same meaning. Under zero conditional lang po. And then, how do we construct zero conditional? Let's start with the condition or the if clause. Of course, if you start with if, of course, with if, the word, followed by the subject. The subject can be singular or plural. And then, simple present tense. The verb must be in simple present tense. Ibig sabihin, kailangan hindi siya nag-e-end sa ed. Next, sa main clause naman, result, subject, and then simple present tense. A simple present tense or the verb under simple present tense can either be singular or plural verb. Kapag plural verb, walang S. Kapag singular verb, may S. So, I know that a lot of you are still confused on simple present tense as well as subject-verb agreement. So, in this slide, I'm going to give you a little discussion on the use and definition of simple present tense as well as the subject and verb agreement. Let's start with the definition of simple present tense. Indicates an action which happens in the present, meaning to say in the present time at the time of speaking. It also indicates unchanging situation, hindi nagbabagong situation, general truths, scientific facts, habits, fixed arrangements, and frequently occurring events, probably habits. Okay? So, that is the use of a simple present tense. Sa mga previous examples natin under zero conditional, ang ginamit lahat natin doon is simple present tense. Okay? For example, pag positive, affirmative, negative, and then question. I start. The subject is I. Singular si I, pero it requires a plural verb. Singular si I, but it requires a plural verb. Another, singular si you, however, it requires a plural verb. Kapag plural verb po, it doesn't end with S. Walang S ang plural verb. Okay, under plural verb. Si you and I is an exemption. Singular subject sila, pero they require plural verb. Pero dito, he starts singular subject. Since singular si subject, it requires singular verb. Kapag singular verb, it should end with S. Okay? Under simple present tense po tayo, ha? Another, singular si she, meaning to say, it requires singular verb which ends with S. Another singular si it ends with S, singular verb. On the other hand, we start plural si subject, meaning to say it requires a plural verb. Wala dapat S. Okay. You, singular, but requires plural verb. Plural requires plural verb. Let us analyze the following sentences. If you hit ice, it melts. If you hit ice is what we call the if clause in the sentence. And it melts is what we call the main clause. It melts describes the result of the situation in the first part of the sentence. If you is the subject, hit is the verb. The verb in the sentence is under simple present tense. Under the main clause, it is the subject and melts is the verb. Melts is under simple present tense. Another, if you drop an apple, it falls. If you is the subject, drop is the verb, and it falls under simple present tense. This is our if clause. And then the result of the situation under the if clause is when you drop an apple, it will eventually falls. It is the subject, falls is the verb. Same goes with the following. In this sentence, we use when instead of if. Again, if and when can be used interchangeably under zero conditional. You is the subject, put is the verb, simple present tense, a rock in the water. This is our if clause. The result of the condition or the situation is it sinks, subject, and then verb. The result clause can go to the beginning of the sentence. The comma is removed. For example, oil floats when you pour it onto water. In this sentence, the main clause starts at the beginning of the sentence, and then the if clause or the dependent clause starts after the main clause. How to form zero conditional? You start by if and when, action, present simple, followed by a comma, and then the result under. Zero conditionals are used for facts that are generally true and do not change. It refers to a general situation that always happens if a condition is met. How do we form zero conditionals? We start with the if clause, followed by a comma, and then the main clause. However, this form can also be inverted. We start with the main clause, comma removed, and then followed by the if clause. Let us analyze the following sentences which fall under zero conditional. Let me remind you that zero conditional sentences requires general or universal situation and then universal result. So under zero conditional, the probability of the condition to happen is 100%. Okay? The probability of the if clause or the condition to happen is 100%. For example, in sentence number 1, if it rains, the ground gets what? What happens when it rains? Ano mayayari sa daan? Of course, the ground gets wet. Okay? So, there is a 100% chance na kapag umulan, of course, mababasa ang daan. So, that falls under zero conditional because there is 100 possibility na mangyayari yung condition set by the condition set by the if clause or the subordinating clause. Etong if it rains is what we call a subordinating clause or dependent clause kasi it doesn't give you a complete thought and totally dependent dito sa independent clause natin na si ground gets wet. Okay? Etong main clause natin, kahit wala tong si subordinating clause, kaya niyang magbigay ng complete idea sa reader. The ground gets wet. Pero etong si SC, hindi. It totally depends on the independent clause or the main clause. The ground gets wet. Another, if she mixes yellow and blue, she gets what? Okay? If she mixes yellow and blue, let us analyze. Let it start with the if clause, of course, and then the subject she, singular, meaning to say it requires a singular subject. Since it falls under zero conditional, kailangan present simple siya. Okay? Ano ang present tense ng mix? That would be, again, mixed din. Kaso, singular si subject, so kailangan lagyan ng S. So, she mixes yellow and blue. So, what will happen? If she mixes yellow and blue, you will get green. So, it is a universal fact na kapag pinaghalo mo yung blue at yellow, ang magiging resulta ay green. So, let us analyze the main clause. She gets green. She is singular because it falls under zero conditional. Kailangan natin ng present simple. Ang present simple ng get ay get pa din, pero singular to. So, lagyan natin ng S. Ano naman ang past tense ng get? Ang past tense ng get ay got. Okay? Another sentence. When he goes to work, he rides his bicycle. So, under this, we uses when. Kapag zero conditional, pwede pong gamitin ang if or when because they share the same thing. Under zero conditional lang po yun. So, what will happen or what happens every time he goes to work? So, ito yung condition natin. That is our if clause. So, the subject is he, singular. What is the main verb or ano yung pinaka-basic form ng goes? Ang basic form ng goes ay go lang. Pero, since ang subject natin ay singular, kailangan natin lagyan ng singular subject, meaning to say, may S. So, ang present simple at singular verb ng go ay goes. Okay? So, that is our if clause or the condition set in the sentence when he goes to work. So, ano mangyayari? What will be the result? The result will be he rides his bicycle. So, he is the subject under zero conditional. Kailangan natin ng present simple. And then, since ang subject natin ay singular, kailangan singular verb din. So, kailangan may S. So, present simple tense ng ride ay ride. Pero, singular verb siya, kailangan ng S. Another. When I wake up, I always drink water first. Analyze. Ano yung if clause natin? Ang if clause ay when I wake up, which states the condition. And then, what will happen? Kapag nagigising siya sa umaga, the subject always drink water first. Okay? Etong si I, siya yung subject natin, singular siya, pero parang you, it requires plural verb. Pero present simple pa rin naman siya kasi ang past tense ng wake is walk. Okay? So, present simple pa rin si wake. Next, if you cross an international date line, the time changes. Ito yung if clause natin, separated by a comma. So, start with if, the subject you, singular si you, pero it requires a plural verb. Kapag naman singular, pero hindi you ang ginamit, for example, she, kailangan lalagyan natin siya ng S, kaso U ang ginamit. So, kailangan wala si ES. If you cross an international date line, the time changes. So, it is a scientific fact and a general truth na kapag nag-travel kayo sa ibang bansa, magbabago talaga yung oras. Tama? Okay, another. If I drink coffee at night, I don't sleep well. So, the condition is if I drink coffee at night. And then, the result will be, or I don't sleep well. Match the following, then write the complete sentences. Complete the following sentences below by making real conditional statements or zero conditional. Keep in mind that we are making zero conditional, meaning to say we must observe simple present tense. Number 1, people get hungry. People get hungry if they don't work.